Hi, this video is going to go through these kind of problems that have to do with distributing negatives with fractions and decimals. Hopefully you'll find it helpful. Okay, I'm going to go fast because we've already been through a lot of instruction on this process with distributing. So I want to go fast so that you kind of have like a model to follow along, but hopefully you'll be able to do this all by yourself. All right, so first we notice that we have parentheses right here. I have a number that's multiplying by everything in the parentheses. So this is really two groups of that, 2a plus 3b. So two groups of that. So let's look at that. I'm going to distribute the 2 times 2a is going to be 4a. And this is the second term, 3b. So 2 times positive 3 is going to be a positive 6b. Positive, put that plus there. And then bring this part down, that is with it, 5b. What can I put together? I could put this term together with this term. So 6 plus 5 is going to be 11b. And then I have 4a over here. And since that's a positive 11b, that's going to be plus 11b. So final answer, simplified expression, 4a plus 11b. Okay, what do we recognize in this problem? Well, I see there's parentheses or grouping symbols right here, and there's grouping symbols right here. And this is 5 groups of this, and there's a minus sign or a negative sign right there that goes along with this. Okay, so now we have to recognize, what do we have? Well, I have a negative 3, this term 1/2 k, a negative 4, and a negative 2k. But I also notice that there's grouping symbols right there. So okay, let's take a look. Negative 3 times 1/2. I'm going to make that a negative 3 over 1 times a 1 over 2. When you multiply fractions, you could cross cancel. So this will be 3 over 2k. And now I got to take this negative 3 and times it by negative 4. So what's negative 3 times negative 4? Negative and negative is going to be a positive 12. So that'll be a plus 12. And then I have to rewrite this term over now that I've gotten rid of these parentheses by distributing, minus 2k. So now I have a 3k. Actually, it's a negative 3k because there's one negative sign right there. I can't forget that. Negative 3k and a negative 2k that I have to put together. So I'm going to go negative 3 over 2, and this is putting it together with a negative 2 over 1k. So I'm actually putting together two negatives. But I can't add these until I have a common denominator with my fraction. The common denominator is 2. So the negative 3 stays the same, and 1 times 2, 2 times 2 is going to be a 4. So now I have common denominators. I can add these together. So negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7. Negative 7 over 2k plus 12. And you can simplify this further by going, turning this into an improper, or into a proper fraction. 2 goes into 7 3 times. That would be 6. With 1 left over, k plus 12. That's kind of sloppy. Let me rewrite that. Okay, so that will be 3 and 1/2 negative k plus 12. So that would be a correct answer. And this would also be the correct answer. Okay, let's see what we have. We have the term 1/2, 4k, and a negative 6. 1/2 times 4, or half of 4. Half of 4 is 2. Or if I had to do it over here, 1/2 times 4 over 1, that would cancel out. That would give me 4 over 2, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's 2k. And a negative, and a positive times a negative is going to be a negative, and that would be half of 6, which is 3. But let's just look at that. 1/2 times 6 over 1, that cancels out. That would give me 6 over 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's where that 3 came from. So that would be your simplified expression right there. Half times 4, half of 4 is 2, half of 6 is 3. It's a positive times a negative, so negative 3. Okay, let's recognize what we have. We have a negative 3 as a term, negative 16a, and a negative 8. So I'm going to go negative 1/3 times 16. That would be 16 over 1. That cancels out, so that will leave me with 16 over 13a, which is also 13 goes into 16 one whole time with 3/13 a left over. Now I still have to deal with 1/3 times a negative 8. So 1/3 times 8 over 1, it's a negative 8, so then my answer is going to have a negative answer, because the positive times a negative is a negative. That cancels out. That's 8 over 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times, because that would be 6, and that would be 2 left over, so 2/3. So this is going to be negative 2 and 2. Wait, hold up. I'm going to put that right here. Negative 2 and 2/3. And right here, I'm going to put negative 8 over 3. So this could be correct, or this could be correct, depending on what the teacher asks you to do. If they say to simplify all the way to proper fractions, you can, or sometimes they're going to tell you to leave it in MN form. Okay, let's recognize what we have. We have a 1/3, 5b, negative 1. 1/3 times 5, that's 1/3 times 5 over 1. Cancels out. That's 5 over 3b. 1/3 times a negative 1. It's going to be a negative answer, and it's going to be 1/3 times 1 over 1. Cancels out. That'll be 1/3. And you could go ahead and leave your answer like that, or you can go 3 goes into 5 one whole time with 2 left over. B minus 1/3. That also could be correct, depending on what how simplified we're going to simplify these. Here we go. We have another fraction problem. There's a fraction, there's a k, and there's a negative 10. There's 3 terms. So 2/5 times k, that's like saying 2/5 times 1 k, or if I could put a 1, I could put 1 in front of that, which is going to be 2/5. So that's going to be 2/5 k, and a 2/5 times a negative 10 is going to give me a negative answer, because a positive times a negative is a negative. So 2/5 times 10 over 1. And I could cross reduce, divide that by 5 would give me a 1, divide this by 5 would give me a 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and it would just be a 4, because 4 over 1 equals 4. So this would be your final answer. Okay, what do we notice here? I have this term, I have a 4x, and then I have a positive, oops, dealing with decimals now. Okay, we recognize that. We know what to do with decimals. All right, so what's 3 times 4? That's going to be 12x. And a 3 times a positive 0.2 is going to be a positive answer. And I'm just going to be careful here. I'm going to go 3 times 0.2. Well, hold up a second. Okay, this looks better like this. 3.0 times 0.2. try it this way, just to be careful. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 3 is 6. And 0, bring down 0, and then everything else is 0. So it's going to be 6D like that. There's 1, 2 places after the decimal. So it'll be 0.6. And that would be your final answer. You could also multiply it like this. 0.2 with a 3 right there. And you could go 6, 1 decimal place, right there would be your decimal. Okay, let's recognize what we have. We have a 4, 0.1y, and a positive 5. 4 times 0.1 is going to be, I'm going to go 0.1 times 4. I'm going to set up this way. It's just easier for me. 4, 0, 1, or just one spot there, so 0.4y, and 4 times 5 is 20, a positive 20. Put the 0 in front of here so it looks like a decimal. 0.4y, 0 4/10 y. You just have to be careful with the decimals and make sure you're putting them in the right spot. Negative 2, negative 0.5y, negative 3. There's 3 terms right there. Negative 2 times 0.5. I hate saying 0.5. It's 0 5/10. So I'm going to go 0 5/10 times 2. That's going to be 10, 0, 1. One spot like that. So it's really just going to be 1. But it's going to be a negative 1 because a negative times a positive. And my y is going to stay the same. And then I have to go negative 2 times a negative 3, which is going to be a 6, a positive 6. So that is the answer there. And if you think about it, this is half of 2. Half of 2, which is 1. Okay, I have a negative 4. I have 4D. I have a negative 12. I have parentheses, so I have to distribute or multiply. Okay, so negative 4 times 3 is going to be a negative 12D. And negative 4 times negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive, so it's a positive 8. Final answer. Okay, I recognize, oh, look at this. There's just a negative sign right there. Just see a negative sign. I see a negative 0 6/10 x and a negative 4. So what the heck does that mean? Well, what that really means is there's like a 1 in front of that. Or it can mean the opposite of everything that's in here that we're grouping with. It's the opposite of everything that's in these grouping symbols. So let's look at that a little bit more closely. So the opposite of everything that's in these parentheses. So what's the opposite of 0 6/10? Well, that would be negative 0 6/10 x. And what's the opposite of this term, negative 4? What's the opposite of negative 4? Because I'm going to multiply that by that. That would be positive 4. So let's look at it using our distribution rules. Let's make it a negative 1. Because we can do that. Because there's an imaginary 1 there. Negative 1, 0 6/10 x, and negative 4. Negative 1 times 0 6/10 x is going to be a negative 0 6/10 x. Negative 1 times a negative 4 is a positive 4. So either way we can look at it, we can say it's the opposite of this group, which the opposite of 0 6/10 x is negative 0 6/10 x, and the opposite of a negative 4 is a positive 4. But this here is your final answer. Okay, we have a negative 7, a 5k, and a positive e. It's really one e. There's one e there if they just put the e. Because if I had just an e, it would be 1e, because 1e is an e. And sometimes we just ignore that 1, but it's there. Okay, negative 7 times negative 5, negative 35k. Negative 7 times a 1 is going to be a negative 7e. E, because a negative times a positive is a negative. Final answer. Okay, let's recognize what we have. We have a 0 and 2/10, 3x, and a positive 4. 0 and 2/10 times 3. I'm just going to do this on the side. That's 6, 0. There's one spot after the decimal. Move it over 1. That's 6/10 x. And 0 and 2/10 times 4. That's going to be positive. I know that. So I'll just go 0 times 4. 0, that's 8. That's 0. So that's going to be one spot. So that's going to be 0 and 8/10, and it's positive, so that's that right there. That's your final simplified decimal answer. Okay, let's identify. We have a 0 and 6/10, 3h plus 5. 0 and 6/10, distribute that throughout that grouping symbols. That'd be 0 and 6 times 3. That's 18. 1. There's one spot there, so move it over. So 1 and 8/10 h. And then 0 and 6/10 times 5. 0.6 times 5. That's 30. 0, 3. One spot after the decimal, that's 1. So it's just going to be 3, and it's going to be a positive 3. Final answer. Okay, here we have one of those negative problems again with just the negative right there. I could say that this is the opposite of everything inside of here. So what's the opposite of 2b? Negative 2b. What's the opposite of negative 5? Positive 5. So that is one way to solve that problem. Another way to solve this problem is I could put a little 1 right here. And I could distribute that negative 1, and there's the 2b, and there's a negative 5. So negative 1 times 2 is going to be negative 2b. Negative 1 times negative 5 is going to be a positive 5, or plus 5. Same thing. Final answer. Okay, here's another problem. We have a 6, we have a k, we have a negative 5k, or a positive 5k, and then a negative 3k right there. Well, let's distribute this 6 throughout the parentheses, and that will get rid of these parentheses. So 6 times k, 6k. 6 times 5 is a positive 30k minus 3k. Okay, well, I have all these k's here. That's pretty interesting. So I got 6k plus 30k minus 3k. Well, I could just go right in order on this one. What's 6k plus 30k? That would be 36k minus 3k. And 36k minus 3 would be 33k. Final answer. Okay. But let's look at it one other way. You could also look at it like this. You could say, look inside these parentheses right there. A k plus a 5k, that's going to be a 6k. Okay, just kind of rewrote that over. So now what's 6 times 6k? 36k minus 3k. 36 minus 3, 33k. So that also is a little different way, faster way to do it, only because when you see parentheses, you do want to see if you can combine anything inside the parentheses first. And we learned that with order of operations. Okay, last problem here. I have a negative 2, a decimals, 0 and 5/10 x, negative 3, and then a positive x outside of the parentheses. So I want to distribute this negative 2 to the terms that are inside the parentheses, or the grouping symbols. So what's negative 2 times 0 and 5/10? It's going to be negative something. one spot there, so move that over once. So that's going to be a negative 1, x. And then negative 2 times a negative 3 is a positive 6. And then don't forget we still have this x over here. And I could start to add those together because after I distribute, I get rid of these parentheses right there. So now what can I combine? I can combine this negative 1x with this, with this positive x, which there's really a 1 in front of there too. So a negative 1 and a positive 1, those x's are basically going to cancel out. And so guess what we're left with? Just a 6. Final answer. So hopefully this video helped you kind of quickly review some of the main things that are going on with distributing negatives, with fractions and decimals. I know I was going fast, but at this point you should be able to start thinking these out independently and just kind of making sure you're understanding the steps, and it doesn't hurt to just kind of hear things or hear other voices tell you, all these voices in your head tell you or show you different ways to solve the same kind of problems. All right, good luck.